Hello YouTube! Our favorite bike riding diva, Mavuika, is out in version 5.3 of Genshin Impact. And in today's video, we will be talking about how stronger does actually Mavuika becomes with every single constellation. And if you are planning to go for Constellation on Mavuika, how much damage you can potentially expect on Mavuika with the level of constellations. We'll also be putting it all in a table so you can have an easy access to all the data and then draw your conclusions. So let's begin. But first, a huge shout out to Azura Star for letting me borrow his account and making this video possible. Now before we start butchering our favorite puppet, Masanori, let's actually have a look at our team members. First, we've got Mavuika, Shilonen, Bennett, and then we got Kazuha. Now, I don't exactly have Citlali on this account, so I will be later on drawing comparisons between Mavuika's damage with and without Citlali towards the end. But for this particular segment of the video, we will not be using Citlali. And also, here is a Mavuika's build for those of you who are curious. Pause if you want. Now let's activate Mavuika's Constellation 1. Constellation number 1, the Night Lord's Exploitation. Now, in simple terms, this makes Mavuika's fighting spirit limit higher and makes her gain fighting spirit more faster. Also, increases attack by 40% for 8 seconds after gaining fighting spirit. Now let's check out the damage. Before we move on to the next section, I would like to have a little bit of your attention please. If you're enjoying the video so far, I would really appreciate if you leave a like, leave a comment, and please subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out a lot and means a lot to me. Let's move on to the video now. Now let's have a look at Mavuika's Constellation 2, the Ashen Price. In simple terms, it increases Mavuika's base attack by 200 and reduces the defense of enemies by 20% once her Ring of Sharing Radiance is active, which is, by the way, her elemental skill. Now, before you get confused that increases her attack by 200%, this is actually base attack. So what it simply means is that when you press your skill on Mavuika, the increase is into the white number over here as compared to the green number in general scenarios. So in simple terms, 200 base attack increase doesn't exactly mean straight up 200 attack increase, but more than 200 attack increase, because now every single attack percentage stack that Mavuika has, let's say for example her Sans, also scales off of the extra 200 base attack. So in reality, 200 base attack increase is a little more than 200 attack increase. So keep that in mind, everyone. I also forgot to mention that Mavuika's Constellation 2 increases her damage of normal attack, charge attacks, and her Sunfell slice damage from her elemental burst by 60, 90, and 120% respectively, which by the way is this particular multiplier plus 120, that's 60, and this is 90% increment. Constellation 3, the Burning Sun, is plus 3 levels for her burst, a pretty much straight up damage increase to her burst damage. Constellation 4, the Leader's Resolve. Mavuika's passive talent, Kiongozi, that increases active party members' damage by 40%, and over the period of 20 seconds, it decreases to 0, will no longer decay, and on top of that, you gain additional 10% damage bonus. Constellation 5, plus 3 levels to the elemental skill damage. And finally, Constellation 6, Humanity's Name Unfettered. Yeah, so I'm not gonna read the entire thing actually, we're just gonna test out if it's an increase in our damage or not, and then I'm gonna show you actually what it actually does. So, well, let's find out. So that was everything I could possibly test about Mavuika, and here is the table of Mavuika's damage numbers on your screen. As you can see clearly over here, the damage increase from Constellation 0 to Constellation 6 is significant in terms of both her skill, her burst, and her motorcycle charge attack damage numbers. But if you were to ask me a particular constellation which would be a good stopping point, I would say C2 because it's a 37% damage increase on her skill, 135% of her C0 damage for her burst, and 78% damage increase on her motorcycle charge attack damage number. Also, a damage increase from going forward from C2 to C4 or C5 isn't exactly as massive as compared to the previous damage increase. Now as for C6, the damage increment for her skill might look the same, but we also have to keep in mind there was an additional instance of damage which dealt about 83k damage, which is roughly 90% of the skill damage at C6, and I was able to count about 4 instances of such damage, so it does add up, right? So in total, from Constellation 0 to Constellation 6, the damage increment is 67% from her skill, 82% from her burst, and massive 200% from her motorcycle charge attack damage bonus. Now this right here is triple the damage. So yeah, if you're going for C6, all the best. And now before I almost forget, here's a showcase of Mavuika, Bennett, Shilonen, and Citlali on my own account. Keep in mind, my Mavuika is at a worse build at C0 and my Citlali is also C0 R1. As you can see, the damage increase for having Citlali in Mavuika's team is massive. So in short terms, having Citlali for Mavuika is literally the best damage increment you can give to your Mavuika. As a final note, I stream most night on Twitch at twitch.tv/Dragner, so do check me out with the link in the description. I would love to have you there, okay? And as always, thanks so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Peace.